Toronto Maple Leafs versus Ottawa Senators, Game 5. Leafs lose 4-0 at home to the Senators, and we are heading back to Ottawa once again. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Victoria. I talk everything hockey and Toronto Maple Leafs from across the pond in Scotland, and after every Leafs postseason game, I do a little recap and share my thoughts on the game. Before we dive into this one, I would like to say that I am generally a very positive person in general, but also about this team. I really do love this team, and all I want is for them to succeed, but games like that last night make it really hard to have faith in them. And at the end of the day, I still do believe that they can take it in either Game 6 or, God forbid, a Game 7. The thought of watching another Game 7 fills me with horror, especially after being up 3-0. So I do think this team can still do it, but not if they play anything like they did in Game 5, because it was a complete and utter disservice to every fan, both in that building, standing out in the rain in the square, and also at home watching that game. Period 1 honestly started off okay for the Leafs. I genuinely thought they looked alright. A couple of minutes into the game, Ottawa came quite close to scoring, but Morgan Rielly actually managed to keep it out with his stick. And although it was a great play from Morgan Rielly, immediately it seemed like maybe Stollarts wasn't quite on the same game that he'd been on in games 1 to 4, because he had no idea where that puck was. John Tavares on a breakaway gets a good look, but honestly the first 5 minutes were pretty back and forth. I do think the Leafs had more and also better opportunities to start off with in the game. Stollarts even made a huge play. Claude Giroux was heading up the ice on a breakaway with the puck, and Stollarts came right the way out of his net to clear the puck out of the zone, and although a very, very risky play, he honestly executed it really well. Nyes then got a chance at a breakaway goal, but he couldn't convert it. But overall, the Leafs looked pretty decent to start off this game. They looked even better when Ridley Gregg took the first penalty of the game with 5 minutes left in the first period. It was a cross-check on Nyes. The Leafs got on the power play for the next minute, and honestly, the power play looked fantastic. They had 4 or 5 shots, I can't remember off the top of my head, in that first minute, but then a nice slashing call resulted in them going 4-on-4 instead. And it's a real shame, because some of the best opportunities they had in that game were on that power play within that 1 minute span of the game. So the potential for them to perform well last night was definitely there. We saw it in that half of a power play opportunity. Not a great thing for Nyes to get a slashing call at that point. It really did take away the momentum that the Leafs were on at that point in the game, and it did feel like a bit of a turning point. However, I did like Nyes shoving Pinto down onto the ice, because he just came rushing towards him and he just got sat right down, and that I did enjoy. But the initial penalty, the slashing call, not a good one to take when your team has momentum like that. Of course, immediately afterwards, the Leafs are on the penalty kill for a little bit, but they were clearing the zone really well. They looked really strong on the PK. They even had a couple chances at a short-handed goal too, so honestly, they looked pretty strong still. However, this is where it starts to go really wrong. The Nyes penalty, for me, ruined some of the momentum. Then they managed to kill that penalty off, and then just very soon after the Sens power play ended, Morgan Rielly cross-checks Chabot and goes in the box for 2 minutes. And honestly, he was probably lucky it was only 2 minutes. I don't know what the hell he was doing. You can't cross-check someone like that. Where is your discipline? The nice slashing call was bad enough, but where is your discipline? Why are you cross-checking people like that? I just do not understand why you watched Ottawa screw up Game 1 because of their discipline, only to make some of the same mistakes last night once again for yourselves in an elimination game. So frustrating. Very like that Max Domi penalty the other night, which ultimately led to a goal as well. It's so frustrating seeing them make these bad decisions. Don't get me wrong, the Leafs kill off this penalty too. It's not like they conceded on it, but you're never going to win a game when you're sitting in the penalty box unless you're getting short-handed goals, which the Leafs are not particularly good at getting. You're not going to be scoring. You can't win that way. Stay out the box. As I say though, period 1, not a disaster at all. It finishes scoreless, and the Leafs were actually outshooting Ottawa 12-3 at this point, so they were definitely putting far more pucks on net, which is something that did not last throughout the rest of the game. In the first period overall, the Leafs did look like the better team, but Ottawa still had a couple of dangerous chances, and it was downhill from here. This was the peak for the Leafs in this game. Everything else was on a decline from here on. Some of that cross-checking penalty obviously spilled into period 2, and the Leafs started on the PK, but they honestly killed it off pretty easily. They were getting control of the puck. It seemed fine. It seemed fine. The start of the second seemed fine. It didn't seem fine for much longer. And then 3 minutes 46 into the second period, Chabot sends a snapshot through traffic and scores the first of the game. At this point, the Senators had hardly any shots on goal, and it honestly just went right through traffic. It's the kind of shot that the Leafs were not taking last night. They refused to just shoot through traffic, which Ottawa did it, and it managed to go in. I'm not too sure if Stollarts was screened a little bit. I know McCabe was kind of in front of him at that point, and I don't know if McCabe screened Stollarts a little bit, or if Stollarts just, again, didn't see the puck. But it's crazy that it managed to go through so much traffic and find the back of the net. But nonetheless, 1-0 Ottawa. It's the sort of goal that you really don't want to give up. Chabot then gets called for a high stick on Yarncroc. That was after the two of them figured out who was actually getting the penalty, because when the whistle was blown, they both looked completely confused and had no idea who was actually getting the call. Leafs go on the power play, not a good power play. Serious lack of pucks on net, not shooting, didn't look strong, didn't look like they were really pushing anything, didn't seem to be making a lot of physical plays, really not a good power play, and this is where the Leafs special teams problems start to creep back in, which is the problem that they had last year in the postseason. In the final 5 minutes of the second period, Marner did get a really good chance. Honestly, probably the best chance of the game came from Mitch Marner at that point, but then Ottawa also came really close to making it 2-0. The Leafs got pretty lucky that it didn't go in. Lorentz also got a pretty good look right before the end of the period, and the second period ends 1-0 Ottawa with the shots 17-12 for the Leafs. A very weak period for them. I don't think they looked great at all. As I say, nowhere near as physical as they needed to be. They didn't seem to have any urgency in this game last night. Like this is your chance to close out the first round at home, rather than having to go back to Ottawa to give yourself a better break before the second round. I watched Steve Dangle's video this morning because Steve is the absolute best, and as he said in it, it was their chance to prove that they weren't what everyone says they are, and I think that is just the most perfect quote that sums up exactly what the Leafs should have been doing last night, but ultimately they did not. The third period, I won't lie, I don't really have any notes for the third period. Stollarts does make a stop. Tkachuk could have made it 2 at that point. This period just completely fell apart for the Leafs. The Leafs go on the power play. Dylan Cousins manages to score short-handed 8 minutes 24 into the period. Why are the Leafs like this? Why do they give up short-handed goals? Why have these special teams problems cropped up once again? And then we get not 1, but 2 empty netter goals from Stützle and Tkachuk. The Leafs lose 4-0 at home. They are 1 for 13 in elimination games. It was shocking. It was absolutely shocking. The same problems that they've had in the past reared their ugly heads again. Matthews and Marner, where were you? Why were you invisible last night? This is the problem. As soon as the core stops showing up, it falls apart. Games 1-4, and yes, I include 4 because even though they lost, it was in overtime and it was really tight. The core all showed up. Last night, John Tavares was the best of the core again. When they lost game 4, I honestly was okay with it. In fact, I was okay with it. I'll be honest. I liked the way they played in game 4. It was a tight game. It went to overtime. It could have gone either way. And I still feel like the Leafs played really well. They just made some mistakes. The game last night, I had that same sinking feeling that I've had in the past, reminding me far too much of that Montreal series in 2021. I've been watching the Leafs now for a relatively short time. I got into hockey when I was 16 and I'm 25, so next year it'll be my 10-year hockey anniversary. But I have never felt so affected by a game or by a playoff series than I was by that Montreal series in 2021. That one got to me on a different level, and I know that there's been Boston series that were similar, but there was something about that Montreal series that completely and utterly destroyed me for days. I still remember so vividly watching those games and the feelings that I had, because there was so much hope. But the problem is, when you've got so much hope, the fall is so much further. And Game 5 just gave me exactly the same feeling. And I don't want to just spew negativity, because I'm generally a very positive person about this team, I feel like. And you know, the internet's full of people being negative. I don't like to just kind of spit out my own negativity into it, because there's enough of that online. But I also want to be honest, and honestly, that was just nowhere near good enough. And if they play like that in Game 6, or God forbid Game 7, they are not going anywhere. And you know what, even if they do manage to get through to the second round, they have things to sort, because playing like that against, I mean, it's likely going to be Florida. I don't know, that game hasn't been played yet, but Florida are obviously 3-1 up, so if they win tonight, then obviously it'll be Florida. But to be honest, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter who you played in the second round. They're going to be a good team because they've made it past the first round. You play like that against them, you are done for. Ottawa was the best opponent you were going to get. They have basically no playoff experience, which really was highlighted in the first few games. The Leafs in all areas are the better team, which again they proved in games 1 to 4, and I'm including 4, because even though it was a loss, it was a different kind of loss. Whereas last night's Game 5, it's the first time in the postseason this year that I felt just not good about this team, was watching that. And I really, really hope that after tomorrow night, and when I'm filming next on Friday, what day is it today? What day is it today? Is it Wednesday today? It's Wednesday. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I really hope that I'm sitting there saying like, woo, like, you know, that was just a fluke. Game 5 was a fluke. I really hope that is the case. But the Leafs just struggle to win must-win games, and it is really concerning. And the only common denominators are those big star players that have been there for every postseason for years now. They've changed every other part of the team. The goaltending's different. The coaching is different. They've added defensive depth. They've made so many other tweaks and changes. The only common denominators are those star players, the Matthews and the Mariners, etc. Those guys are paid a lot of money, and they just don't prove that they're worth it in the postseason. If the Leafs lose this first round, then, you know, I'm not generally like a blow up the team kind of person, but like you have to do something, because this isn't working. I still have hope for Game 6, and it's just really hard. It's really hard to feel positive when you watch a game like that last night. If they had lost in a tight game where they just really showed up, but like Ottawa got perhaps luckier breaks, or perhaps Ottawa just outplayed them slightly and were the better team, but the Leafs still poured everything into it and looked good, I would not be saying these things right now. But the kind of loss that was last night, I just think is inexcusable. And it makes me angry for people that spent a lot of money to be in that arena to watch that game, and that's what they paid money for, was that performance, that lackluster, lack of effort performance. And I saw a couple of the player quotes after the game, and a couple of them sound just a little bit nonchalant for my liking. I really would rather these guys took accountability for the fact that they didn't play well enough. It's all fine and well being like, oh, I think we're fine. Okay, well, you tell that to the fans that spent a load of money to watch you last night. You know, like, you tell that to them, to those people that were out in the rain watching, and to the rest of us that were up watching that game last night. I never mind losing sleep for the Leafs. I minded losing sleep for that game, because it was shocking. I'm sorry for the negativity. I wish there was something more positive I could spin on it, but there's so many positives came from games 1 to 4. Game 5, I'm really struggling to see a lot of positives. They did start off well. That first power play was fantastic. The nice slash and call killed that momentum, and it was only downhill from there. So Game 6, back to Ottawa. Hopefully they go back to playing the way they did in the first few games and they can win it. I really, really hope they do. Otherwise, I have no words for this team. Those are all my thoughts for Game 5. Leave me a comment down below. What did you think of the game? If you're also a Leafs fan, I can well imagine. I feel you. Again, I'm sorry for the negativity. I really wish I had more positive things to say, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and have this toxic positivity thing going on, because it was a brutal game. It was awful, it was terrible, it was not enjoyable. So, hopefully the team from the 6 can take it in 6. Hopefully the next video I film is me celebrating at 3 AM because they've gone to the second round. I really hope that's the case. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel and also like this video if you did enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back again soon with more hockey chats from across the pond. Bye guys.